Ladies and gentlemen, in this RedGamingTech.com video, we have yet more on the Xbox One, this time concerning games. Microsoft have revealed that it is going to be investing $1 billion towards games for the Xbox One. They're also keen to point out that they are very much focused on games when they're going forward. This was said by Don Matrick, who is president of Microsoft's Interactive Entertainment Business, and Phil Spencer, who is from Microsoft Studios Corporate Vice President. We will deal with the quotes first, of course. We want to be about serious fun. Things that people are really passionate about, things that they love, things that they can't wait to get home to experience and to use. That's what the Xbox brings about. So, we're in the serious fun side of the house. You can call us the, 5 to 9 section if you want. Matrick himself also emphasized the importance of the core games and added to this that we just ran through our script and counted the number of exclusives and looked at the amount of money that we're spending and the deals we have, exclusive windows and things to create differentiation. I think, candidly, people are way under indexing how hard we are punching. He also continued to say, we're going to come out with the details and things that people are going to go, oh my god, like they were focused, they made this a core goal. Core activity. These are great hits, there's innovation, and there are world-class creators plugged in. I can keep track of it all. I hope everyone here does. We kind of look back at all the different years, at what we shipped, how many units we have sold. There's a lot of hyperbole around things, but I think we're going to deliver. Finally, he added, when you look at all forms of content across all devices, games always pop right to the top of the App Store that are out there. They're a form of content everybody loves. If I want to play a game for 2 minutes, or I want to play a game for 2 hours, or I want to play a game of 20 other people, all of those opportunities are available on the platform we're putting forward. I see our creators really taking the opportunity to think about their games in a more granular way. And that would be end quote. So these are some pretty damn bold statements from Microsoft. So what are my thoughts? Well, first things first, before we jump too heavily into the analysis, it's worth noting that I don't think anyone seriously believes that Microsoft are going to have a very weak games lineup. I mean, let's just be honest, the original Xbox had a pretty decent games lineup, and it was the first of the console they produced, and they had titles on it like Fable, Knights of the Old Republic, the first Halo even, Halo 2 of course. These all revolutionized gaming in some way or another. But Xbox 360 took this to the next level, and certainly the online gaming was much improved on Xbox 360. Now of course we're getting to the next level, we're getting to the Xbox One. Now there are a couple of reasons that I think people are concerned. The first is that Microsoft are championing these other services rather than talking about the games first. Now, I think that people's concern isn't that Microsoft are not going to have these fantastic games. I think it's just that they want to make sure that Microsoft's vision matches their own. In other words, if you're supporting a company or you're buying a product from a company, you want to ensure that that company has not exactly the same philosophies as you, but certainly puts the priorities in the same order as you. Microsoft have been fairly off on this. They keep calling the Xbox an all-in-one entertainment device, and the fact that it can do so much more than just play games. But here's the problem. When they went forward into their conference and they said, this is all the Xbox One can do. This is what the Xbox One is capable of doing with the live TV. And the bottom line is, you've got to understand that those of us who are watching it, including myself, okay, we are into tech. There's no denying most of us who are watching it. Well, let's even say a good portion of us that are watching it are into tech. But a lot of people who were watching it are either on the fence, so they're not sure whether to get a PS4 or an Xbox One, or they're interested in gaming in general, or they just want to see this new piece of technology. Regardless, most people who are watching it, at least 90%, are gamers. It stands to reason. And by gamers, I don't just mean the odd casual gamer, I mean pretty damn hardcore gamers who will play as often as they possibly can. Now, the problem is, when you're talking about all this other stuff, and I'm not saying that the games they showed were bad, I'm not saying that, Call of Duty is a terrible title, I'm not saying that Forza was a terrible title, but here was the problem. There were a couple. First of all, it's a new Call of Duty. You can only have a certain amount of innovation for this, because like it or not, if you're not a Call of Duty fan, you're probably not going to be turned on to a new Call of Duty. It's that simple. If you're a Call of Duty fan, you're going to think to yourself, oh great, a new Call of Duty, but it's not something you're going to salivate over, more than, say, a different IP. The other problem with all of this was that there were a couple of key words that they missed out when they were saying all of this. They said that it's running on Xbox One hardware, but they didn't say that it was actually running live on Xbox One hardware. In other words, it was being demoed right there and then. The other problem that a lot of people had was they were looking at the graphics, and especially with the Call of Duty, and they just said, well, this doesn't look that next-gen to me. And, these comments have been popping up everywhere. I'm not just talking about, in my videos, I'm talking about IGN and all the big sites. People have been saying, well, what's so, that impressive about, Call of Duty? Regardless of all of that, the problem that Microsoft had was that they weren't going straight into this. They were talking about a lot of features that people, honestly speaking, a lot of us just don't care about. All these hand gesture things, and the ability to talk to the Xbox and connect, and being able to browse the internet at the same time as, being on Skype or Skyping while you're playing. It just doesn't matter to us unless we're playing a very casual game. Sure, it does have some uses. Sure, it's not like it's going to completely go to waste. But we want to see the games first and foremost. The other problem Microsoft have been having with all of this is two things. One, the Xbox One, graphic power-wise, is under the PS4. This is pretty much certain. And the other issue is that, well, people are very wary about the DRM. Now, these two issues alone are somewhat cause for concern, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the worst hardware out between the Xbox One and PS4 is going to be the worst games. It's always going to have the worst games on it. Generally speaking, if you were to look at, say, the PlayStation 2, it absolutely battered all of the other consoles in terms of that generation, simply because the games on it. Now, obviously, the Xbox One that did have some the original Xbox, should I say, did have some fantastic titles, as I said, like Halo 1 and 2, but just sheer amount, the PS2 won out, simply because, of course, it was so damn popular. Now, obviously, exclusive games, however, are what really sell a system. There have been a few comments regarding some of the exclusivity they have with Electronic Arts, and to be fair to Electronic Arts, they are a very good company to have on your side. I absolutely love a lot of EA's games, and that's just not me just saying that. It's just a fact. It's like me saying that if I fall from 10,000 feet, I'm not going to be as well as if I was to fall from 1 foot. It's just a fact. You've got games like, Mass Effect, for example, and as soon as you start saying they've got developers under them, like, for example, BioWare, it's just a huge boost for Microsoft. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that they're going to get games like Mass Effect as an exclusive, but there may be timed pieces of DLC and so forth. The problem is that a lot of this was brushed over, and once again, they were going ahead and saying that a lot of the details will be revealed at E3. The problem, I think, that they had with this is that they believed that people would get extremely excited about all these other functions, when in reality that people weren't. People do not want to look at the Xbox One as an entertainment device first, and then a games machine later. They want to see the games now. Why? Because people go in there, it's like the show was all about the Xbox One. unveiling the next generation, how Microsoft visions of gaming and everything else was going to go, and people were really excited. But then you don't show them what they were really coming there for. Instead, you show them all this other stuff. Now, that isn't to say that that won't appeal to certain demographics. That's not to say that people won't love this stuff, in 6 months, 12 months, 24 months after it's been released. But it's not how you win out your core gamer fans, the ones that have been with you all this time. They want to know, have you got X in development? Because the bottom line is, they want to see that you are continuing to provide the same stuff that they loved you to begin with for. And all of this talk about cloud gaming and gaming on the cloud and so forth, people are still somewhat unsure about it. I've mentioned a couple of times now about this cloud processing and how it's going to help certain games. Now, we're going to really analyze this really in depth over the next day or two. But obviously it cannot help with all processing simply because of the lag of the internet. And that's not to say that it can't be used really well, but I think people just want to see the games. In many respects, Microsoft have exactly the opposite problem to what Nintendo do. Nintendo, of course, have the issue of people will know that there are going to be quality games coming out. That's not really a question. The problem Nintendo have is that, people assume it's going to be an underpowered console, and worse, they don't have anything to draw in new players. Microsoft, on the other hand, have a fantastically powerful system. They have a fantastically powerful infrastructure, but people are unsure of what games are going to be out. So, what is my prediction? Well, my prediction is a lot of the stuff is actually going to blow over pretty quickly. I think E3 is going to come out, and my personal opinion is that Microsoft are going to pull out every single punch they can to make sure that they are as strong as they can possibly be at E3. That is not to say that they will be better than Sony at E3 or Nintendo at E3, because I can't predict that. I cannot predict which developers will look best, but what I can predict is they will focus as heavily as they can on the games. They will want to show us everything they have done. They will be like that 5-year-old kid who wants to show, his parents every drawing that he's ever done, because they need to get the attention. I also think that if they get the pricing right, if they do cut down on the DRM, and that's a huge issue right now because people are really worried just how invasive this DRM is going to be. I think if all of that is fixed and sorted out, the Xbox One is going to be a fantastically successful console. Why? Because it just doesn't make sense for it not to be. The games market has always worked with at least 2 competitors on there. It just always has, and I don't think Microsoft are going to somehow screwed up to the infinite degree where they are not that successful. Worst happens, I can see with Microsoft, and I do mean absolute worst. We will have a situation where it's not quite as popular as the Xbox 360, or doesn't build upon the popularity of the Xbox 360. That is not a disaster. That is not a terrible system. I think that Microsoft will have to do some tweaking on stuff. I think that they probably will make the odd mistake here and there, because no developer has ever been perfect in the history of mankind. It just doesn't make sense to be perfect, because you cannot figure out every single contingency. I think they did make a big mistake with the conference. I think that they went slightly the wrong direction. But one of the reasons for that may have been, and we know that they put back the conference at least about a month. One of the reasons could be that some of the developers, because we know that some of their projects were running behind the PlayStation 4. In other words, they were just slower. They weren't being produced as fast as possible. Some of them were up to 6 months behind. It could simply have been that there were numerous delays because of the cloud technology and various other bits and bobs, and matter of factly, they simply didn't have the games technology that they wanted to show off, and therefore could only demonstrate what they had. But, I've actually heard some people say stuff like, you had these old men or, these middle-aged men that were trying to use these buzzwords, technologies, and all of this stuff. And it just doesn't make sense to me because, first of all, they're tech analysts or, CEOs of tech companies. Of course, they're going to use tech buzzwords. They have to. It's kind of like me saying, accusing a builder of using the word bricks. Of course he's going to use the word bricks. It's part of his job description. It doesn't make sense. I think Microsoft have come under some unfair criticism, but at the same time, I think that they need to address a lot of the issues. I think the games are one of those issues that I think they will have a good lineup. I'm pretty sure of it. I'm not going to bet my bottom dollar on it, but I'd be surprised if they don't show a really good lineup at E3. I just want them to focus on the games. I want them to dial back a bit on all this other stuff, because to me it's not going to sway my interest one jot. Sure, they're a big enough company, however, that it doesn't matter. It's not like they're working on a skeleton staff of like 20 people or 30 people. That's another thing that a lot of people are not taking into account. In other words, they have such a large amount of employees on their payroll that conceivably they most likely are not shortchanging one aspect of the console. I say that, and of course there has been some issues, some sacrifices, if you will, that have been made with the hardware design, mostly because of the DDR3 memory. And the reason that it has simply less compute units, GCN cores, is because it's using DDR3 RAM. Check out my tech video, by the way, Xbox One versus PS4, if you want more information on that. But overall, my feeling is that both Xbox One and PS4 are going to be really strong at E3. I think Nintendo are also going to kick ass at E3 as well. I think that we're going to see a very strong lineup of PC games also, but that just goes without saying. Anyway, I think that's just about it for this particular video. It's been a bit of an interesting one. Let's just go with that. But hopefully you've enjoyed it. I will see you soon. Take care and bye for now.